downtown Indianapolis, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the home of the Indiana Pacers, where this afternoon it serves as the host of college basketball. It's the inaugural Indy Classic between our #1 ranked Purdue Boilermakers and the Davidson Wildcats. Thanks so much for joining us on this Saturday. I'm Rob Blackman, the voice of Boilermaker basketball on the radio. To my immediate right, Chris Forman, our sports information director for men's basketball at Purdue, and of course my broadcast partner, the former Boilermaker Bobby Riddell, who actually once played in this building against Davidson a long time ago. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about first things first. The fact, Chris, that the Purdue Boilermakers, for the second straight season, are ranked #1 in the country. There are very few teams in the Big Ten that can claim to have been ranked #1 in the country in back-to-back seasons.
Yeah, very rare for it to happen to a Big Ten team. Purdue is the first team since the mid-'70s. The Indiana teams back in the mid-'70s to be ranked #1 in consecutive seasons. It's only happened 4 times ever in Big Ten history. Ohio State in the early 60s, another Indiana in the early 50s, and then Purdue. So unbelievable accomplishment so far these last 2 years to get to #1.
And to go from unranked to #1. Again, it's rarely happened to climb that quickly in the charts. Purdue went from unranked to #1 before December was even over.
Yeah, in 34 days, which was the fastest anyone's ever gone unranked to #1. Again, just shows the type of early season success that Purdue's had this year.
All right, success is one thing, Bob. Maintaining success is another. As we found out the hard way last year, when you're ranked #1 in the country, you get everyone's best shot. Purdue found that out the hard way at Rutgers. Purdue now has to be ready for everyone's best shot.
Absolutely. I mean, last year, yeah, it was a tough lesson that we had to learn that going to Rutgers. It's a very difficult place to play. One of the toughest places to win at on the road in the Big Ten is at Rutgers. And we got their best shot that night. And unfortunately, Ron Harper Jr. broke our hearts with one of the craziest Euro step half-court heaves I've ever seen. But hopefully this #1 ranking for Purdue can last a little bit longer this year. It's nice that today's game is in the great state of Indiana versus being on the road for Purdue. So even though we're not at Mackey Arena, we should have a large contingent of Purdue fans here supporting our Boilermakers.
There are some differences, not many, but some from last year. Purdue was 8-0 when they were ranked #1. Purdue had not played a true road game at that point, went to Rutgers and lost, first true road game of the season. This year, Purdue 10-0 before they're ranked #1, and Purdue has already played 2 true road games at Florida State and Nebraska. So maybe that'll help Purdue stay #1 for a little bit longer than they did last year. The trick, however, as you know, Chris, is to stay #1, you have to keep winning, and that'll be a challenge today against Davidson.
Yeah, Davidson's a good team, a really good offensive team. Foster Lawyer, Fletcher Lawyer's brother, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later, has had a great start to the season. They've got some other guys that can really shoot the 3. Their defense is not quite as good as probably Rutgers was last year's, but their defense, hopefully we can exploit them some, but their offense is pretty good coming into today's game.
Now, we don't know for sure. We'll all find out together when the game begins, but it sure looks like Mason Gillis is healthy again, or at least close enough to being able to play. He's missed the last 3 games. It'd be nice to have him back.
Yeah, Mason Gillis has practiced at least the last 2 days. He may have practiced Tuesday and Monday. I wasn't at practice those 2 days, but he's practiced the last 2 days. Looked really good in shoot-around this morning, really active. His role on the floor was going to be big. If Davidson opts to double the way Nebraska did, he's another shooter that you can put on the floor and really stretch the defense.
By the way, we should explain the ambiance in the background. All these people are not here for Chris and Bob and I. They're actually a game before us here as part of the Indy Classic. Ball State is playing Illinois State in the first game, and then of course Purdue Davidson is coming up as the nightcap. All right, so I have to talk about December 2008. Purdue plays Davidson right here in this building. It wasn't called Gainbridge Fieldhouse back then. But my partner, Bob Riddell, was a senior on the team. I'm assuming you remember that game quite well. If for no other reason, Steph Curry was on the Davidson team.
Yes, remember that game really well. The year before, when Steph Curry was a sophomore, he had led that Davidson team on that remarkable Elite 8 run, took down Wisconsin in the Sweet 16. So when Steph returned for his junior year, there was a lot of dilemma whether he would go pro or not. He decides to return for his junior year. We have that game scheduled here in Indianapolis against them, so there was a lot of excitement for us as a team to get to go against that Davidson team, and Steph Curry in particular. And what was fun for me is leading up to that game in practice, I got the assignment of being Steph Curry on the practice squad to try to prep our guys for the look that Steph Curry would provide. I'm not sure I was able to quite provide that look, but we did hold Steph Curry down that day, and the Boilers beat Davidson decisively. So I must have done something right that week.
Whatever happened to that Steph Curry guy? I don't know what he's doing now.
He's had an okay NBA.
So, if you emulate Steph Curry in practice, were you given the green light from Coach Painter to shoot at any time from anywhere on the floor?
I was. It was the most amazing thing of practice of my life. I would do it all over again in a heartbeat. Coach Painter basically gave me free reign to do whatever I pleased. I could shoot from wherever I wanted. Even air balls were applauded because Steph would do that sort of thing. He would pull from anywhere. So that was a really fun time because I got the ultimate green light to do whatever I wanted.
All right, so let's talk about modern day Davidson. You mentioned him a moment ago. Foster Lawyer, older brother of our own Fletcher Lawyer. Foster's a fifth-year senior. Started his career at Michigan State, finishing up at Davidson. Of course, our Fletcher Lawyer, a true freshman. For a guy in your business, this one has all kinds of juicy little storylines to write about. The Lawyer brothers.
Yeah, the great thing about the Lawyers, I was doing some research on it, and Foster won the 2018, I believe, Michigan Mr. Basketball.
Right.
Fletcher did not win Mr. Basketball, but he was the Indiana Gatorade Player of the Year this year, so they both won state honors. Their parents are obviously, they grew up around basketball. Their dad, John, was a coach for a long time, interim coach for the Pistons, years ago. He's a longtime scout, so they've been around basketball. They were with the Philadelphia 76ers when Allen Iverson was there. There's pictures of him with Allen Iverson. So been around basketball their whole life, and this obviously is going to be a special night for their parents and for them as well.
A couple of notables if you're watching the game, or we hope listening to the game on the radio today. Zach Edey closing in on 1,000 points in his career.
Yeah, he needs 4 for 1,000. He'll become the 55th player. He also needs 1 block shot for 100 in his career. So he could probably get both of those milestones today, but you look at the type of season he's had to start. To get 1,000 points, he needed, 240 coming in, and he's almost already there through 10 games. It just shows the kind of start he's had. The
other thing about Zach Edey, if you follow Ken Palm the way this guy does, and you look at national player rankings, who's been the best in the country to this point, Zach Edey's the guy. Yeah. He's heads and shoulders above the rest.
Number 1 by a significant margin in the Player of the Year standings. It's all analytics with Ken Palm, so there's no weird voting or anything that goes on with it. And the amazing thing for Zach, he's been the game MVP in all 10 games this year, which is unprecedented to start a season.
All right, Bob Riddell. Looking back at the win over Nebraska this past weekend, overtime win, it was not easy, but Purdue found a way. I thought the one thing Coach Painter, when you visited with him postgame, one thing really stuck out to me is how pleased Coach Painter was with the shots we got offensively. Just didn't make them. One would assume you get those quality shots again, say today, Purdue's going to be in great shape.
I think so too. I know you experienced this week. Some people would like us to have more penetration at times and get to the ball of the rim a little bit more, but yes. We did get a bunch of high-quality open looks from guys that should shoot those open threes at a pretty high percentage. We're not talking about tough, contested threes we got in that game very often. They were a lot of clean looks, and that was because of the style of defense Nebraska played. They were selling out to take Zach Edey out of the equation, and they did a pretty good job of that as far as limiting his field goal attempts. But the nice thing about Zach is even if he's not getting a lot of field goal attempts, he can still be a force on the offensive glass, can still draw fouls, and he's a willing passer out of the post. So some of our guys just got to be ready to step up. I would expect, they should assume to see the same type of defense. So got to be ready to shoot your open shots. And as Chris pointed out, having a 40% three-point shooter and Mason Gillis back in the fold should hopefully help out as well.
I'll point out, too, I thought we even passed up some open looks the last game, too. Like Braden Smith, he passed up a couple that I thought he should have shot. David Jenkins passed up a couple, so they just need to be ready to shoot when the ball comes to them.
Well, let us see if maybe Gainbridge Fieldhouse has a friendly shooting background for our Boilermakers here today. This is a 6:15 tip-off, 6:15 Eastern. For those that want to join us on the radio network, we'll go on the air at 5:15, so not that far from right now. And we hope you can join Bob and myself as we give you the pregame show and lead you up to the tip. Again, 6:15 here at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Purdue and Davidson. Purdue's next home game coming up Wednesday, right? 9 o'clock?
Yep, 9 o'clock, New Orleans.
New Orleans, so.
Beautiful 9 o'clock Wednesday tip.
And before Christmas. I'm sure, well, I'm not going to say anything. We're just happy to play games, quite frankly. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, today. Appreciate you being a part of it. Thanks to Hunter, who worked behind the scenes. For Bob, for Chris, I'm Rob. Purdue basketball, downtown Indy today. We hope you join us here for the inaugural Indy Classic. Have a great day, everyone.